Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're doing a deep dive into a career path that most people don't think about every day, but it involves artistry, precision, and yeah, maybe even a touch of danger. We're talking about lacquer spray gun operators.
It's funny how often we just see a finished surface and we don't really think about all the skill that goes into it.
Right. And you sent over a really interesting collection of sources on this: career guides, interview advice, even tips on how to navigate those AI hiring platforms. It seems like you've been really trying to get a comprehensive picture of this field, so that's what we're going to do today.
Yeah.
We're not just summarizing the information, though. We're digging into what this job really entails, if it could be a good fit for you, and some hidden aspects you might not expect. What do you think is the most surprising thing that people don't realize about this job?
Hmm. Well, I think a lot of people might just assume that it's a purely manual job,
Yeah.
you know, but the RoleCatcher guide actually highlights the artistry involved in it. Taking those raw materials and like wood, metal, plastic, and then transforming them to these flawless finishes that we see every day. It's like the difference between just painting a wall and creating a beautiful piece of art.
Okay, so it sounds like we're not just talking about someone with a steady hand and a spray can. These are skilled artisans. What does that actually look like in practice?
Well, they need a deep understanding, first of all, of the materials that they're working with, the different types of lacquer coatings, and then how to actually operate a spray gun.
Yeah.
But then beyond that, they need a really keen eye for detail and then the ability to achieve very specific finishes, whether it's that high gloss shine that you see on a car or a matte finish on furniture. There's a surprising amount of creativity that goes into it.
So you need that technical precision, but then also this artistic touch. I can see how that would be a really engaging combination for the right person. It makes you wonder, though, is this a career path that's right for just anyone, or are there certain personality types that are more suited to it?
That's a great question, and I am sure that's something that is on everyone's mind when they're exploring this career path. The sources that I sent you do a good job of laying out the pros and the cons to help people decide if this career path aligns with their own goals and priorities. One of the biggest draws to this job, though, is the earning potential lacquer spray gun operators, especially those with experience and specialized skills, can earn a good living.
That's always good to hear. What about some of the other pros? What else makes this a potentially rewarding career?
For someone who likes to work with their hands and see those tangible results, this job can offer a lot of satisfaction. Every project is a chance to transform something ordinary into something beautiful and durable. Plus, there's the opportunity to specialize in a particular area, like restoring antique furniture, or working on those high-end automobiles, or even developing new coding techniques. The career guide even highlights one senior operator who worked his way up to collaborating with engineers on new product designs. That's a far cry from just holding a spray gun, right?
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a lot of potential for growth and specialization, which is great. But let's be real, no job is perfect. What about the downsides? What are some of the challenges someone considering this field should be aware of?
Yeah, you are absolutely right. There are definitely challenges that come with any job, and this one is no different. Physically, the work can be demanding. You're often on your feet for long hours, and the repetitive motions can take a toll on your body.
So someone who enjoys physical work and doesn't mind being on their feet might thrive in that environment.
Exactly. Another important consideration is the potential exposure to chemicals. Lacquer coatings often contain what are called volatile organic compounds, VOCs, which can be harmful if you're not taking the proper safety precautions.
That makes sense. So someone who's safety conscious and meticulous about following procedures would likely be a good fit. And I imagine there are times when the work environment can get pretty intense, especially with deadlines looming, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The guide mentions that depending on the specific industry and employer, overtime might be required, especially when projects are behind schedule or during peak seasons. So it's important to be prepared for that potential demand on your time.
It's all about finding that right balance for your lifestyle and your priorities. But what I'm hearing is that this job has the potential to be both creatively fulfilling and financially rewarding. But it also requires a certain level of physical stamina, attention to detail, and a commitment to safety. It seems like you really need to weigh those factors carefully when considering if this is the right path for you.
Exactly, and I think it's great that we're looking at both sides of the coin here.
So we've talked about the day-to-day of being a lacquer spray gun operator, the skills, the demands, the potential rewards. Let's say someone is intrigued by all this and they think this might be the path for them. What does the career progression actually look like?
Well, the good news is RoleCatcher actually breaks down the typical career ladder really well. And they include these real-world example profiles, too. So you can actually get a glimpse into the lives of these professionals at each stage of their career. It's not just abstract information. It's like you're hearing from someone who's actually been there.
Oh, I love that. It makes it so much more relatable.
Hmm.
So let's start at the beginning. What does it look like for someone who's just starting out in this field?
So you don't necessarily need a fancy degree to get started. The emphasis is really on hands-on experience. Apprenticeships, internships, even just assisting a seasoned operator, those on-the-job hours are really where you learn the ropes.
So it's more about dedication and willingness to learn than any specific educational background.
Absolutely. And, one of the example profiles is this woman who started as an assistant, just mixing coatings, prepping surfaces, that kind of thing. But she was so eager to learn, always asking questions, volunteering for different tasks, and eventually she was trusted to handle the spray gun on her own. Now she's a light operator, training new recruits.
Wow, that's awesome. That's a real testament to her work ethic and really taking initiative. And that aligns with what we were talking about earlier about, the importance of continuous learning in this field. It seems like a willingness to learn and adapt is just essential for growth.
Yeah, definitely. And then as you gain experience and move up to like a junior lacquer spray gun operator role, you get more independence, more responsibility. You're not just following instructions anymore. You're interpreting work orders, making decisions about the best techniques to use. You might even be mixing your own coatings to achieve specific finishes.
So it becomes more than just mastering that technical skill, right? It's
Yeah.
about problem solving, decision making, really taking ownership of your work.
Exactly. And the example profile for a junior operator really highlights that. It talks about how this one guy encountered this situation where the standard coating wasn't adhering properly to this one type of metal.
Mm.
And so instead of just like, forging ahead, he actually took the time to consult with senior operators, research different options, and he ended up experimenting with this modified mixture that actually solved the problem.
That's fantastic. So he saw a challenge, took initiative, and then relied on his knowledge and experience to come up with a creative solution. And I can see how that would be such a valuable skill in any field, but especially in one that requires so much precision and adaptability.
Mm.
And speaking of experience, that brings us to, I guess, what you would call the top rung of the ladder, the senior lacquer spray gun operator. What sets these individuals apart?
Well, at this level, it's about way more than just applying coatings. These are the experts, the mentors. They're often leading teams, developing procedures, maybe even collaborating with engineers on new techniques and innovations. It's like the next level of mastery where you're not just executing the work, but you're actually shaping the way that the work is done.
That sounds like an incredible amount of responsibility, but also a tremendous amount of influence and creative freedom.
For sure. And like a senior operator profile on the guide talks about how she was tasked with setting up this whole new production line for a completely different type of product.
Mm.
And she had to research and implement all these new safety protocols, train a team of operators, and basically make sure that this entire process ran smoothly. She even ended up developing a custom color matching system that actually saved the company time and money.
Wow, that's amazing. It sounds like the skills that you gain in this field, especially as you progress to that senior level, are so much broader than you might initially realize. We've talked about problem solving, leadership, even like innovation. Those are skills that really do translate to just about any industry.
Yeah, and I think that's a really key takeaway here. Even though we're focusing on this very specific trade, the skills and the career trajectory we're talking about, it has implications that go way beyond just operating a spray gun.
One of the things that I found really interesting in these sources was this unexpected range of skills that's needed to be a successful lacquer spray gun operator. It's not just about having that technical ability. It's like this blend of art, science, and then problem solving too.
Yeah, absolutely. And the guide specifically even calls out production and processing knowledge as being super important.
So it's about thinking about the bigger picture too, right? It's not just about focusing on that one task in front of you, but understanding how it all fits together and then how your work actually impacts the final product and even the bottom line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's the math. People might not even realize how much math is involved.
Yeah, you know what? I have to admit, I actually did chuckle to myself when I saw mathematics listed as like a key skill. Tell me more about that. Where does the math come in?
Oh, it's everywhere. Mixing the ratios for different coatings, calculating coverage areas so you're not wasting anything, estimating the amount of materials you need for a project. It's all about precision, accuracy, and you need a good grasp of math for that.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like baking. You can't just like eyeball the ingredients if you want consistent results. You need those precise measurements.
Exactly. And speaking of precision, we can't forget about communication and teamwork too. The guide actually gave an example of a junior operator who noticed a flaw in a finished surface. And so instead of trying to hide it or fix it on his own, he alerted the senior operator right away, and they figured out that there was this temperature variation in the drying room, and that was actually causing the issue.
Oh, wow. So his honesty and willingness to speak up saved them from this potentially much bigger problem down the line.
Exactly. It's about understanding that quality control is everyone's responsibility, and communication is key, especially in those fast-paced environments.
And that actually brings us to another skill that was highlighted in the guide that I thought was interesting: education and training, which seems kind of counterintuitive, right? You think of the experienced operators as the ones who have all the knowledge.
Right. But it's interesting, as they gain that expertise, many of them kind of naturally transition into roles where they're actually sharing that knowledge. They're mentoring newer operators, making sure those high standards are maintained.
Yeah, it really speaks to the importance of lifelong learning in this field. You never really stop learning, and eventually you get to share all that you've learned with others, which I think is really cool.
For sure, it highlights how valuable those experienced operators are,
Yeah.
not just for their technical skills, but for their ability to guide and train that next generation of operators.
And speaking of getting ahead in this field, you were kind enough to share some things from RoleCatcher with me, which seems like an amazing resource for anyone who's serious about this career path, especially with navigating that always changing world of job hunting these days.
It's a game changer, especially all those tools that they have to help people get past those automated recruitment systems.
Let's be real, those algorithms are kind of a mystery. How does RoleCatcher actually help with that?
Well, it's about understanding how to speak the language of those systems. Their jobs feature helps people tailor their resume to the specific job description, highlighting the skills and keywords that those algorithms are looking for.
So it's not enough to just list out your experience, you have to know how to speak the language of the bots.
Yeah, exactly. It takes the guesswork out of it, and it really increases your chances of getting your application seen by an actual human.
Which is incredibly helpful in such a competitive job market these days. But even if you make it past the bots, you still have to think about the interview. So what kind of support does RoleCatcher offer for that?
Oh, they have tons of interview prep resources,
Hmm.
practice questions, things like that that are tailored to different industries. And they had some really insightful ones that were specific to lacquer spray gun operators.
Like what? What's an example?
Well, one that I really liked was, can you describe a time that you had to troubleshoot a problem with a lacquer coating? What steps did you take? And I think that question really gets to those problem-solving skills that we talked about earlier.
Totally. It's not just about them demonstrating their technical knowledge, but also their thought process, right? How they analyze a situation and come up with a solution.
Exactly. And having a well-thought-out answer already prepared can really make a big difference in an interview.
Well, we've explored a lot today, from the intricacies of being a lacquer spray gun operator to the artistic and technical skills involved, the possible career paths, even how to navigate the job market to break into this field.
Yeah, it's been great. I think it just goes to show that even in a trade that seems so specialized like this, there are actually so many skills you can take with you to other fields.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of valuable lessons here for any career path, really.
I completely agree. So as we wrap up today, I want to leave you with this. Take a look around you. Chances are you're surrounded by objects that were probably touched by the skilled hand of a lacquer spray gun operator. Your phone, your furniture, your car. It's a good reminder that even in this increasingly digital world that we live in, there's still so much value in that craftsmanship, in that precision, and just the transformation of taking raw materials and turning them into something both beautiful and useful.